Thank you, Abraham. Okay, so I had the joyous discovery this summer of realizing that I had become an Abraham-inspired psychotherapist. I'm doing clinical work. I hadn't been doing that for a while. And what comes out of my mouth is Abraham.
Yeah.
I do very well. My patients love you, by the way.
Yeah.
I do very well with what man has called depression. I do very well with what man has called anxiety, substance abuse, trauma, I don't call it that, but, I have an area of expansion that would be fun if I could do, where I would like your...
Inspiration.
Inspiration, clarification, and expansion.
Yeah.
It's what man has called psychosis, when people, to find relief, lose touch with reality in a way that man has conceived of. They can't really feed themselves or take good care of themselves. So I get that that's a way of finding relief. And relief is what you've always recommended. Relief, find relief, seek relief, get you in the vortex. But then I have this in front of me, and I don't know, I'm good with the others, I'm not that good with this. Because I'm having so much fun being an Abraham shaped psychotherapist, and it has been fun, and I didn't know it would happen. It just happened. And this thing that man has chosen to call psychosis.
Would you describe it as a withdrawal?
Yeah.
Would you describe it as a lack of interest? Would you describe it as a lack of focus?
It's a lack of focus because I'm assuming they feel better by not looking at...
But when you are interacting with someone like this, what is your experience? Do you have their attention?
I have their attention.
And how do you get it?
Not so sure, but that's not difficult. I just don't know that I want to pull them away from the psychosis.
Well, that's the question that we're presenting to you, and we'll chew on it together until something clicks into place for you.
They have found relief in this thing we call disconnecting from reality. They found relief. I see that's valid.
And what are they focused upon? If they have disconnected from reality, it sounds a little bit like our opening remarks to all of you.
Yeah, right.
We'd like you all to disconnect from reality if it's not pleasing to you, and begin creating a new, what have these teachers come to teach you?
Right, exactly.
So they're not functioning very well in this world.
As in the way our society, they couldn't hold a job, they may not have, that type of, they may be under a bridge, that type of stuff, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm not so sure how to move with that.
The thing that's most important is that, first of all, you can't evaluate for anyone else what their desire should be. So if they don't have a job, anyone here have a job you don't want? In other words, there are a lot of people that are happier under the bridge than at work.
I do get that. I understand
We're
that.
playing with you a little bit, but we want to flesh this out in a way that we can get somewhere with it. So describe, if you can, and we know it's never a good idea to put everyone with a label in one basket, but can you describe a typical person who is living with this psychosis? What's his world like?
They respond to stimuli that isn't there, apparently. They talk to people that apparently are not there.
Uh-oh.
This is what I don't know what to do with it.
Do any of them talk to birds?
It does feel very different from bringing forth infinite. It feels very different. It has a different vibration. It does.
Well, we acknowledge that it's different than what we've been describing here to some extent.
Yeah.
But the basis that we want to start with here is that you are a reasonable group. Stay with us just for a little bit. You are a reasonable group. So when we talk to you about knowing what you don't want and knowing what you do want, and we encourage you to try to give more attention to what you do want, it seems possible, maybe even logical, not easy, but it does seem like something that you could do in time. But if you had been living something for a long period of time, if you had been, by virtue of what you were giving your attention to, your attention being the reality of what is, if you had been giving your attention to reality, maybe you were in Vietnam and it was a reality that you would, and a lot of those people under those bridges were that. Or maybe you lived some trauma. Maybe it was a general trauma that took place over a long period of time, or maybe it was a sudden trauma that, but as you've been focused upon something and it was something so big and so unwanted, and you feel powerless to do anything about it, and you don't understand, you haven't had the benefit of having someone sort of coach you into alignment and make it all right for you to be where you are and guide you vibrationally little by little back into vibrational alignment. If you feel like your only two choices are to face reality and feel the most excruciating pain that you've ever felt in your life, or to withdraw from reality, you will find a way of withdrawing from reality. And we think that's a good step given those only two considerations that you're giving yourself.
That I get thoroughly. What do I do when I see this person who chose to create a different reality or not face that horrendous reality? I don't know how to bring them into alignment. Whereas with the others, I can bring them into better alignment.
We can tell you how to bring them into alignment. Yes. First, and most important, don't condemn where they are. And we know that that's a strong word, but when you say to anyone, I need to bring you from where you are to another place, there is an implied criticism of where they are. It's just there. So you have to make peace with where they are, which is what we just did. You made the best choice in the world. And if I were standing in your physical shoes, I would be patting myself on the back for the choice that I made. And then we would go on to explain, because as you say, they're lucid and able to hear. We would explain that if you sort of don't want something, then you sort of want something. And if you don't have what you sort of want, you sort of feel bad. It's just sort of the way it is. But if you really don't want something, if you've experienced something horrific, you really want something else. In other words, when you think about what some of them have experienced and the desire that was born within them and the vibrational separation between what they witnessed or what they were a part of and what they desire, it's a bridge that is so big. We would say to them, it's a very difficult bridge, and hardly anybody ever makes it. And what you've found a way of doing is withdrawing from that. And this is what we're standing in your physical shoes, I want to help you come into alignment with who you are, but I don't want to activate any of the stuff that you've left behind in that process. I do not want to activate any of that stuff that you've left behind in the process, and we're not going to reactivate any of that stuff. We're not going to bring it back, because you deserve to be happy. Life is supposed to be good for you. And from what I see, you've got it going on. You've figured it out. In other words, we would soothe them, we would compliment them, we would understand them, we would acknowledge where they are, we would applaud them, we would understand them as best you can. You can't. We'd say that. You can't. I didn't live what you lived. And so here I am proposing to lead you into a better place, and I don't even know where you are because I've never been there. But I know that it's a place that you don't want to be. And I believe with everything that I am that there is a better feeling place for you, that's somewhere between where you are and where you think the world wants you to be. There's an inner rebellion going on. Have you ever had anybody try to get you to quit smoking? Aren't they annoying? Have you ever had anybody imply that you're too fat or that you should eat better? In other words, none of you take that attention to where you are, that critical attention to where you are. It never, ever, ever, ever inspires you in any productive way for very long, you see. And this is someone that you're describing who has really withdrawn because there have been so many attempts, you see, because you just can't get there from there. There are so many flawed premises. The first flawed premise is you should be in a different place than you are. That's a flawed premise because that's nobody's business. And if we were standing in your physical shoes, we'd tell them that. The first flawed premise is that you're not where you ought to be. I think that's a flawed premise because I think you're the only one that gets to choose. And the only thing that I want to ascertain is, are you where you want to be? And if the answer is yes, then I'm going to leave you alone and I'm going to support you where you are. But if there's something about where you are that you don't want to be, then let me know and I'll see if I can help you. But I'm not going to be a very good leader for you because I've never been where you are. And I've never been an advocate of anybody standing in some bright and shiny place and being the advocate of somebody who's standing in a place that they don't even begin to understand. How could anybody lead somebody from a place that they don't understand? This will resonate with them. That's the mantra that they've been beating the drum of for a very long time. You just don't know. You just don't know. You just don't know. When someone has come to the place that they have decided that they're going to withdraw from society, they don't care about holding a job, they'd rather live under a bridge than jump through the hoops of those who don't know, that's what they're rebelling against, don't you think? They don't want to jump through the hoops. This sounds like you're teenagers, doesn't it? Sounds like a lot of you. A lot of you recognize this rebellion within yourself. And what is rebellion? What is the feeling of rebellion? It's really more about rebirthing than it is about anything else. It's about discovering a way. We'd say things like, you know, the more I get to know you, the more I realize the strengths that you hold. It's taken a tremendous amount of strength for you to withdraw from a society and a system that you don't believe in. I applaud that. The rest of us are much weaker. Everybody I know are nearly so, except that guy. Goes to work at a place he doesn't want to go. Most everybody is doing stuff they don't want to do because they're jumping through the hoops of somebody else. You're pretty amazing. You're holding tight to where you are. I think that you have some things to teach me, you might say to them. It takes a powerful focus to do what you're doing. To withdraw from all of this reality. You could say, you know, I teach people every day to fantasize a reality and focus on it, because I know that if they're able to do that, that their reality will conform to their focus. But hardly anybody has the ability to withdraw their attention from what is. But you did. You have the ability to withdraw your attention from what is, which means you have a powerful point of focus. Part of the reason I like talking to you is because I want to get some of what you're doing and teach it to other people that I know. But there's got to be something in between. Most of my clients who are just giving their attention all over the place to all kinds of things and letting reality control their experience, and someone like you who is giving almost no attention to reality. But you see, that's not really true, is it? We've come round to something really important for you to recognize. These people are not so different from everybody else, you know. He just has a different reality that he's focused upon. In other words, everybody's perspective is different from everybody's perspective. There are not two of you who hold the same perspective. And if you would stop trying to get people to agree with your perspective, that's what's really wrong with politics. It's what's wrong with religion. It's what's wrong with psychology, is that there's this given acknowledgement. This is the party line, or this is the expected understanding. This is what we've all come to. And now we must teach our society to conform. And in teaching society to conform, what's happening is you're losing your way because you're conforming to that and that and that and that instead of to that and that and that and that. You came to explore the contrast, to give birth to who you are, and who you are stands in a really vivid place. So our question to you is, how do you know that these people are not in alignment with who they really are? Because they're not expressing joy?
When I see them, I don't know what to do. I'm not so sure where they're at. I really would never admit that at work, but I really don't know where they're at.
Well, if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would admit it to them. I don't know where you're at because I haven't been where you've been.
Yeah.
And I suspect that you've got a desire that's more powerful than anything that any of us have had, because I can feel the power of something that you've lived that has made you want something. We would explain it to them in vibrational terms. You've got a desire that you're so vibrationally apart from that you've found a way of coping with that. And then we would just applaud their coping mechanism. We would. When Esther was a teenager, her brother-in-law, who was showing off for all of them, jumped over the fence and didn't realize that there was an irrigation ditch on the other side and broke his ankle. It was a bad break, and it really hurt for a minute until his body went into shock. Coping mechanism. In other words, his own body protected him from a discomfort that would have been so much he could not have endured it, you see. And so there are a lot of coping mechanisms that physical humans are discovering. And if we were standing in your physical shoes, the first thing we would do is applaud the coping mechanism and then take it from there.
This is amazing. I'm going to chew on this for a long time. And I appreciate that you have opened my mind to working with this situation. And I love...
We want to give you we're going to take 2 minutes. We're going to give you a very short list of premises relative to this. Speaking from you to them. I don't know where you are because I haven't lived what you've lived. And it is obnoxious of any of us counselors to presume that we know where anybody else is. Start there. My work with you isn't to lead you to where I think you should be. That is ridiculous. For me to presume that I know what's better for anyone. So I'm not doing that. I have one purpose as I interact with you. I want you to help me figure out where you want to be, and I'll give everything I've got to helping you get there. And if you can convey that with a real resolve for trust, not only will many of them get feeling better right away, but you're going to learn, because of these extreme focusers, processes to help you with literally everyone you interact with, so that next time we have a conversation, it won't be so long from now, your opening words to us will be the reverse of what you said today. Today you said, I'm really good with depression, and I'm really good with anxiety, and I'm really good with, but what I haven't begun to understand is psychosis. And next time you will say, I got to the bottom of psychosis, and now I understand everything.
I love you so much.